that it? We're going?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That was quick. Hey, everybody. It's MP and Claire. We're back with our Season 6, Episode 9, Battle of the Bastards.
What are you laughing at?
Review and analysis. Just the fact that I said it. I didn't look over to you. I was laughing.
Yeah. Penultimate episode.
Penultimate episode.
Is that back door open? I can't believe Brienne's just started screaming now. She's been quiet all night. It's open.
Shut up. It's Asha too.
Is Asha?
Why don't you know your cats?
I don't know. How many links?
I gotta give it a 5. I'm gonna give it a 5.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What, as good as Hard Home?
I like it better than Hard Home.
Right, okay.
I didn't think Hard Home was all that great. There's better episodes than Hard Home.
Well, you always expect episode 9 to be the big action episode.
Yeah.
I would say 4. I thought about 5 briefly, but I did think about it, but in comparison to Hard Home, I felt Hard Home was a more action-packed from start to finish.
Absolutely,
more thrilling
it was,
episode.
For sure. Meereen was probably what would take this away from that, but
the only thing that's exactly what made it a 4 rather than a 5
was Meereen.
Well, first of all, I'm fairly confident that next week's finale episode will be a 5. I think what's happening in King's Landing is going to make it a 5.
Sure.
Unless they just lead up to everything and then just we don't sort of get the finale type payoff.
Pretty
if they
hard.
leave
Even
us on
this
some
episode,
really crappy
really hard
cliffhangers. I mean, there's certain things that they can do where it doesn't. There's some sense of finality, like that's already been written in the books, like with Kevin and Pycelle, and
sure,
there are things like that can happen in King's Landing that is going to make it.
So
I think that the thing that reduces the scoring for me is exactly what you've said about Meereen. There's just some aspects of it, like the around the Maesters, that just seems a bit too convenient. It's like, oh, that's great, but that's like, how did you pull that off? But we'll get to it when we get to Meereen.
What do you mean, getting them up there to talk to them, or
just the fact that it's like the dragons kind of arrived on cue? Like,
yeah, when she looks down and then they bust out of the thing, that was pretty cheesy.
It was great, and
like we'll get to
visually it was a spectacular episode. Wasn't as good as Hard Home, still very, very, very good. And I'd give it a high end 4, hoping for more next week.
High end 4.
Yeah.
Because you don't give half links.
Can't give half links, but I can give different types of 4.
All right. I got you.
So this episode, I was convinced we were just going to be focusing on the North and Winterfell, but we did get that dichotomy of battles. So you get the battle in the North with Winterfell and the Battle of the Bastards with Ramsay and Jon, but you also get the fighting and I wouldn't say battle, it was more they were just under attack in Meereen, but you do get those two different battles. So it's just really 2 scenes, 2 locations.
Or is it a siege? Is a siege the same as a battle?
It's a type of battle, I suppose, isn't it? It's a battle tactic, but
it's not really a battle tactic. It's a battle of necessity. When somebody's holed up in a place, you don't allow them to get into the place as a strategy.
But you could take that risk if you. There's a number of different variables when you come to battle strategy.
Forget it. You're wrong, but
well, there are. It's not always by force that you...
Yes, but you don't lay siege as part of a strategy. You do it out of necessity.
Well, yeah.
Unless you're keeping somebody in and preventing them from coming out. That way it's part of a strategy.
To me, like they weren't mounting a defense until the moment that Daenerys took charge with the dragons.
Yeah, well, that was Grey Worm's plan, right? To
Yeah.
hold up in the keep.
I think we're getting hold up on semantics here, whether it was a battle or a siege or an attack, but shit was going down in Meereen, same as Winterfell in the north. So, you all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Are you
I'm
sure?
Good. Yeah.
What I'm guessing that you want to talk about Meereen first, because we've just got those 2 locations to cover.
Yeah, we might as well do north last, but
Okay.
if you're guessing.
Okay. We've got a couple of separate scenes. The first one being you see immediately, right, okay, it isn't just going to be about Winterfell, because we're actually seeing Meereen. So there's going to be this additional battle as well. It's not all going to be set at Winterfell. And the first sort of dialogue that we have really is Tyrion and Dany, and Tyrion seems very kind of timid and sort of apologetic, and like, you know, things aren't as bad as you think, and the city's kind of getting back in shape again as the pyramid is being completely bombarded.
Yeah.
He's talking about her father, which he comes up a few times actually in this. He comes up a few times in this
they're
episode.
hitting the episode 10 quite hard, because they're talking about what Ares did.
Yeah.
So if Cersei is going that route, they're really leading up to it all.
Talked about the wildfire and how he knew, and Jaime told him.
So he laid out the blueprint for what could probably be happening next episode.
This is going to be Cersei losing it completely and just at least attempting. I don't know whether we're going to see King's Landing go up in flames. It's going to be destroyed by wildfire, or just the intent is there and she gets stopped somehow, or maybe it is just left on that cliffhanger. I
can't see
it. Excuse me, but yeah, he's mentioned a few times this episode. You get the, you know, we've all got terrible fathers. Tyrion talking about the wildfire. And there's another, I've made a note of another couple of times, I think, that
I don't have much notes,
referenced.
so just go ahead and talk and I'll add in whatever I can, but I really don't have much.
Yeah, there's the bit as well where Davos is talking to Tormund and he's saying,
That's
you know, about
north.
the
Is this tie-in?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
He's talking about Stannis having demons in his head and hearing, listening to whispers.
Yeah, good.
So cool. There are whispers, if you like, of Aerys throughout this episode in different, sometimes directly, sometimes more subtly.
Definitely on purpose.
So we get Tyrion. So we get Daenerys going in there with her, I'm going to burn their city to dust, and Tyrion offers, you know, hang on a minute, there may be an alternative to this. And this is the bit that just seems a little bit, I'll let it go because it was a great episode and the action was great, and
there's lots of cheesy bits, but a lot of it were good cheesy bits too.
Yeah. But the whole surrender thing, it was good. You know, there was a twist because you think, okay, the alternative is they surrender, but actually no, it was, we're here for your surrender, we're not going to surrender. So I thought that was, when they did that, I thought that was good, because that's, do you remember at the beginning of the conversation they say to the Maesters, they're talking about terms of surrender, and the Maesters wade in and say, yes, we want this, and we're going to take the Unsullied back and resell them, and Daenerys just goes, oh, hang on a minute, your surrender, not ours.
Yeah, but you had to have expected that the whole time. It didn't really shock you.
It wasn't a shock, but I just thought that was...
You said twist, and I was like, well, that wasn't really
well, okay, all right, maybe it wasn't a twist as such as it was a cleverer... But it was exploring that, what the alternative was that Tyrion kind of suggested in the previous scene. The bit that I thought was just too convenient was the well-timed arrival of Drogon swooping in, and suddenly the other two dragons kind of joining in formation, and it would take
more issue with the other two dragons rather than Drogon. Drogon could have just been on standby someplace and maybe Dany has some sort of bond with him. I mean, it could be explained somehow. The other two was
It's just
shit. They
like,
could have broken out whenever they
you
felt
know,
like it all this time, but they just decided to.
it just I think if it explained a bit more about like how suddenly the dragons kind of arrive on cue at very convenient moments to kind of
But that's been
end a
happening a
story
lot
arc
this whole season.
Yeah.
A lot of scenes like just like that's like even the Hound, like, oh shit, and they're massacred and gone, and he's on his own again in one episode.
Yeah.
It's
there is
too convenient.
There's a couple of positive things though that I want to say about the dragons is it's visually the size of, and just the fear it would instill, but the size of Drogon, and when he swoops down and you can see a bit more close up, it's kind of like underneath his scales where his skin is, it's like molten lava. So it's that, you know, in the books dragons are described as fire made flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to say that I thought that was quite well represented visually in the TV show, because you can, it almost looks like they're made of fire,
burning flesh.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The other thing as well, when they're up in the air and they're kind of circling around the ships and they're breathing fire onto the ships, there's a clip. I think I might have just paused it for a second while we were talking about something, but when I look back, I thought, wow, that literally looks like a page of artwork out of a World of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, no, I actually had the exact same fucking thought. I was like, I swear I've seen that image before, where it's her flying down and that her hair is way silver.
Yeah.
In this too, when she's going down,
the image of the dragons just looks very.
But yeah,
so, you know, they've obviously they've paid it.
Fuck, have I seen this in artwork before?
They've paid attention to the artwork of that book, definitely. So that's a couple of positive things to say about the dragons, but I just thought it was a bit of a very well-timed, convenient tie-in there with the "we're not going to surrender, you're going to surrender because look what we've got," and Dracarys, and it was just, you know.
We did do a live reaction video. The sound was really fucking bad.
The sound was
started off good.
It was okay for about 20 minutes, and then
but it's the same mic we're doing there, so it wasn't this one. So I don't know why.
We must have put something in front of the mic, and it just
obscured. It's this. The mic's up here.
Right. Okay. I don't know. Yeah.
But she called the Dracarys right at the moment, and you called something else too. But the finding the horse, the stag.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you knew that there was going to be some visual imagery with that.
Yeah, I think LaDonna's actually said that way back when. It might have been yourself as well. But,
the only other thing for me to say about that first scene in Meereen with the Maesters attacking and then the surrender is right at the end when Tyrion and Melisandre say, you know, there are consequences, and the consequences of your actions are one of you has to die. And I thought it was a nice touch that it was the lowborn one that survived the other two.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even,
because you know, the whole
they made a point of
and,
showing him as being the one that they gave up. No, good point.
So is there anything else that you want to say about those early scenes in Meereen?
Tyrion was a little upset. He gave her that big speech early on about why Jaime killed Ares and everything like that, because he was going to blow up the city. But then when she's talking to Yara, which I guess he didn't actually bring up yet, but she says that both of our fathers were murdered by usurpers, and Tyrion kind of gives a little grimace, like, shit, she still thinks of my family as the enemy, sort of thing. So that was interesting. So I've got notes on Sansa in here as well, so obviously I wasn't doing good notes.
Speak up a bit.
I'm just talking to you. I'm not talking to them at that point.
Okay.
Theon tie-in with Jon, so you get this version of how many different people Jon parallels. Obviously, you get him paralleling Ramsay directly in this episode with the Battle of the Bastards. But Theon as well, how difficult it must have been for you growing up in Winterfell, never knowing who you really were.
Yeah.
Which is...
So you get this, so we've moved on to the next scene, which is, surprisingly, Theon and Asha arriving and just presenting themselves in front of Dany and Tyrion.
Which shocked both of us. I think both of us were surprised to see him there already.
I think that what we might have been thinking was that when the Maesters were attacking the city, that the Ironborn would turn up and be like, whoa, hang on, we'll help you, you're being attacked. Let us show you how we can be your ally. Rather than just, again, I suppose you've got to think about budget and stuff. So having them just presented in front of her and having this, the kind of the conversation that they had was more than acceptable, but it was just a bit of a shock to see. I suppose it's always when you see a character in a completely unexpected location, and especially as a book reader, because that character is nowhere near that location.
Well, no, but
in the books,
she was
it's in the Crofters village with Stannis, who's still alive.
She's playing Victarion's role, so you know that's happening. That's why we knew that she would be.
But in the books, Victarion hasn't got off his ship yet.
No, and that's the other thing too, is that they're still out in the...
So it was just I think one of the...
It's funny because we were trying to figure out who he was talking to. The first question she was asking, when last I saw you, we were in Winterfell, and we're like, what? And then it's Theon.
Yeah. And you kind of forget that way back in season 1, which was years ago now,
6,
they did encounter each other in Winterfell. And it's like, so you have to just adjust your brain very slightly.
Yes.
I thought that, and I think, again, a lot of people kind of roll their eyes with Tyrion and Tyrion's storyline and Tyrion's sense of humour and things this season is a bit like, well, hang on, he's much darker in the books. He's not in this position in the books.
I think they're trying to present it in their own...
weird
way.
But I'm actually trying to say something positive, which is, despite that, which I understand people's views on his
for sure
character this season, if you go back to other episodes and you pay attention to the dialogue from Tyrion, it's loaded with loads of stuff. Like, for example, in this episode, he talks about, everybody makes fun of dwarves. You know, I've heard it all my life, and he gives some examples of that. And then he talks about he's talked about jokes twice now. Once in this episode, where he says,
doing 5 or 6
saying 5 or 6 jokes over and over again. I've heard it all before. And then in the previous episode, he was he was talking about jokes and trying to tell jokes and get Melisandre and Grey Worm to tell jokes.
Gotcha.
So I think you can replace the word jokes with theories. So
sure,
try and tell me your jokes rather than, tell me your jokes. What are your jokes? Have they only got and then this time
I had a similar thought, but I was like, well, what are the same 5 or 6? I couldn't do the numbers properly, so
it's probably the same 5 or 6 main general theories.
Which are what?
About John's parentage, about who wrote the pink letter,
Twin-Targ, pink letter,
who's a secret Targaryen, who's, there's you can probably count.
All right, that's good. I like that.
The same 5 or 6 variations of those theories that are kind of constantly being peddled all the time.
Sure.
And just the fact that he was trying to get Grey Worm and Melisandre to tell their jokes, and it was like,
and they were playing that role definitely. In the previous episodes, for sure. The role of the viewer or the theorist.
Again, Aerys, we've mentioned, comes up in this scene when they talk about terrible fathers. We've all got terrible fathers, and I thought it was quite interesting that Asha was clearly flirting with Dany, and Dany seemed to be sort of responding to it, like, you know, queens together, wink wink, you know, we're gonna sort of take over. But it was just there was something like, you know, I'm up for anything kind of thing from Asher.
Yeah, but Dany has had her moments as well with
in the books, yes. Yeah, in the books, not in the show.
A little bit in the show. She asked her to teach her.
Oh yeah, yeah, mildly. I thought that it's kind of, I mean, it's good to have some kind of reassurance that Dany isn't turning into some psychotic, mad, like.
Exactly. Tyrion explained something to her. She's like, very good. That makes sense.
Yeah, and also she said that she, you know, ultimately she wants to leave the world in a better place than she found it.
Yeah.
Which is a good, you know, goal to have. It's not. It doesn't sound like evil tyranny to me.
No, it doesn't.
I don't know. I mean, the other thing to question,
Dany,
I suppose,
is said that right, and I was looking at Dany and Tyrion, and you put them together, it's tyranny.
Yeah. I thought that was quite interesting about the Ironborn and just like suddenly we're going to reform the Ironborn, and you're not going to have the same culture anymore, because that's
I can't see that.
That's going to be difficult for Asher to kind of rally that. That's what I mean about
in the books whatsoever.
It's the Meereen stuff, as spectacular as it looked visually this episode. There was a little bit that was like, no, that's simplifying quite a big problem or concept. Again, for TV show purposes, absolutely. But I thought Meereen was pretty good, and I didn't mind them. Like I said, in my mind, I thought the whole episode would be dedicated to Winterfell, and
I guess things could have been left unsaid there.
I
mean, if Dany's going to give them a reason not to be, you know, reavers, rovers, and rapers, or whatever she said, then you can see them being willing to change. They've really never had any other reason, though. Iron Islands is their home, and there's fucking nothing on the Iron Islands. You fish, and that's it.
But again, it's their home. It's their home.
Yeah, but if she gives them lands inland, because they do raid inland and try to hold fucking places until they get their asses kicked out again. So, I mean,
well, I suppose it depends on how friendly Dany and Asher really get. Well, she could end up giving her like the Westerlands.
I'm actually going into just thinking about the books more than the TV show here, and how it would play out there. But
anything else that you want to say on Meereen before we get to the big meat on the bones?
I don't think so.
One thing that we didn't get resolved in Meereen was who's the Harpy?
Of course not, because it's Varys. Speaking of, do you think he will show up? Do you think you said no. I asked you this before. You said no. You don't think he's going to King's Landing. You think he's doing something else.
I think unfortunately, I think he's going to Dawn.
I like that. That's cool.
To rally the Sand Snakes to the Targaryen cause against the Lannisters or against the Crown. I think that's probably what's going to happen with Varys. But like I say, unfortunately, I think we're going to have to endure Dawn.
I don't know.
A little bit again next season.
The simple fact that he's gone, I think we're going to see him pop up again in King's Landing, because that's kind of how it was.
Maybe. It depends on what you get in episode 10. I mean, we could talk about the trailer now if you want.
Sure, I haven't. Really.
Okay.
I know you're watching. I listened to it.
Well,
I've seen it, but I haven't. I don't remember it.
Before we get on to Jon and Ramsay and Sansa, then let's talk about the trailer. So it's just less than a minute long. And the thing there's a few things that are shown. So you get the trial in King's Landing. You get.
Who's on trial? Is it Cersei?
Cersei and Loras.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I think this is where Cersei turns. she's working with Qyburn, and her little security blanket at the moment is Qyburn and the Mountain. So, and the Mountain doesn't really count anymore because Tommen's outlawed trial by combat. So what they're going to have to do, I think, is pick away Tommen's whisperers that are manipulating him. Then that's Kevin and Pycelle, which would mirror what happens in the books. There's also a shot of like a second of a winter landscape and a white raven flying over it. So that's like, you know, which is very reminiscent of that scene in the books with Pycelle and Kevin. So I think I think she's just going to go crazy. There's going to be wildfire. She's going to threaten to burn them all. I don't know whether or not Jamie's going to be there or involved in it or hears about it, or it might not even happen this season. It might just all be setting that up for next season. In terms of Cersei and King's Landing, you also get what looks like a conclusion to the Mel and Davos thing, with Davos finding the stag. Because there's a scene where you can hear Davos saying, tell him what you did, so it's like he's holding Mel accountable and kind of calling her out.
I remember that now.
And then there's a brief clip with the Freys where the Freys are talking about the Freys and the Lannisters send their regards. So I'm guessing that's got something to do with River Run, or
are they just telling a story?
Brotherhood without banners, I don't know. I think two things that we can discount now from this finale are Clegane Bowl isn't going to happen, although I still don't know what's going to be happening with the Hound and if he will be in next episode. But I also don't think we're going to see Lady Stoneheart. I think that's just not going to happen.
I still think they can bring her in anytime. Because she shows up, she's already got a history in the books that you don't know about. So we haven't needed to see her all this time. So they just have to bring her in at a certain point and then explain the story, so you can get her. I mean, I'm not saying that we're going to get her, but
I thought that seeing the Brotherhood, I thought seeing the Brotherhood without banners this season would automatically link in Here Comes Lady Stoneheart. But what they've actually done is aligned the Hound's storyline with the Brotherhood without banners. So I think that again diminishes the chances.
But if you take Brienne out of it and put the Hound in there, and the Hound takes Brienne's role, you can still get Lady Stoneheart try to hang the Hound. I mean, for Sansa, maybe. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not sure I'm not sure.
I just rather not say never, but you're probably right.
I think
they've missed many opportunities where they could have brought her in, that's for sure.
I think they're going to probably do a scatter approach in the next episode of like a little bit of Arya, a little bit of Sansa, a little bit of Bran. It looks like
20 minutes on one key scene,
which is probably King's Landing. So I don't know. It could be. Apparently, it's been leaked online. The plot, the finale.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know if it's like genuine or not. I've not read it, but I have seen the trailer, and it just looks like, whoa, there's going to be a lot. And also, it's an extended episode again. Like tonight's was an extended episode.
Let's say,
so they've
when
got
we
a lot to
watched
fit in
this episode, we thought maybe Davos was going to kill Mel right there. Yeah, we were hoping.
Yeah.
We thought he had the opportunity. She didn't seem to notice him, and
that might happen next episode. Mel might be one of the big deaths, but again, in the books, I don't think it's emphasized too much on the show about her being able to. That's the first thing that she's trained in, is to see her own death, to know when it's happening.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Before, but I was looking for that and I haven't found it.
Let's move on then to the big battle scenes and Winterfell. So yeah.
Okay, first things
What
first.
did you think?
So, title of the show is The Battle of the Bastards.
Yeah.
I just have to point out that the first thing we get with Jon and Sansa is, "You don't have to be here," and she says, "Yes, I do." Because arguably, in my head, she is a bastard. But I'm just saying. So that's just dialogue. I'm just quoting it.
What do you mean she's a bastard?
Well, Ned was married before. In my theory. So that makes the marriage to Catelyn illegitimate. Right. Yeah.
Right, okay.
So Jon's the only actual true heir to Winterfell.
Okay. The first scene that you get up in the north is the kind of pre-battle parley between you've got Jon and Sansa, and even little Lyanna Mormont is there as well, which I just thought is like, yes, she's such a hero.
Just the one. She almost had cactus her Ollie face.
Yeah, she's kind of scowling. She's trying to get the measure of Ramsay, and it's just like, she's so badass, and she's only 10. Ramsay is clearly winding everybody up right from the start.
Sure.
I did think it was interesting that Ramsay picked up on the Jon being a deserter from the Night's Watch, because nobody else, when they were doing the rounds and trying to rally support from the Northern Lords, nobody else kind of seemed to pull him up on that. Like, hang on a minute, you should, I'm going to need to chop your head off because you've just deserted the Night's Watch. That's what we do in the North. So, in a way, Ramsay had a point.
I would say that's probably just a writing slip up, though.
Yeah.
Oops.
Again, in the dialogue, when Ramsay says, "I've heard a lot of stories about you, Jon Snow," and it's like, everybody's heard stories about Jon Snow.
The way they talk about you in the North.
Yeah.
And everything he says isn't actually factual. So, and who would be telling him these stories, by the way?
Yeah, well, there seems to be lots of stories in the North. Everyone talks about Jon, and it's like,
that's interesting itself.
What other
Ramsay
stories?
Just pulling his leg, or is people actually talking about Jon?
I don't know.
In the actual episode terms, not in the terms you're speaking about.
They start talking about Rickon as a bargaining chip, and I mean, Sansa's just kind of holding her own right from scratch, and she's,
So, but
when she says you sleep well, this is going to be the last day you ever live, which was correct.
So Sansa's pretty fucked up this entire episode, and she's making huge mistakes.
Do you think she's making huge mistakes? There's certain sort of it's like a balancing act between affirmation with Sansa.
Weird word to use. It depends on how you look at it. In her mind, probably not mistakes, but why not tell Jon about Littlefinger's army? He asked her point blank, where are we going to get more troops from? And she doesn't tell him. Why
doesn't she tell him? I know she's keeping things from him. And the other thing, in the trailer for the next episode, there's an argument or a conversation between them. A heated conversation by the sound of it. Again, it's just a very brief clip where they talk about trust. We need to trust each other, which means at some point these two aren't going to be able to trust each other. I thought she was quite cold. About
very great moments for her, and her paying attention and listening to their strategy and standing up for herself. Why aren't you listening to me? Great stuff. But yet not telling Jon, like, hey, you know what? We got a fucking army here that we can utilize.
Yeah.
You don't have to get crushed to death this way. We can't wait a little bit, and you don't have to rush into anything.
Maybe she just didn't trust Littlefinger up to that point. Maybe she didn't have any kind of assurances whatsoever that he would turn up. I mean, I know that she was with him at the end.
Much. That's never going to be explained in the
Yeah,
show or anything.
yeah.
That's just putting your own thinking into somebody's head. I don't know.
If we just go back to that first encounter between Ramsay and the Boltons and Umber, actually, Small John Umber was there, and the parley at the beginning of those scenes, and I just want to stop and pause and say, holy shit, it was Shaggy Dog. It looks like it really was Shaggy Dog all along. The head of the wolf, sure. Which means this season we've had Summer, Shaggy Dog, obviously Lady right at the beginning in season 1. So the only 2 dire wolves that are However,
which is interesting too, just in itself. Now that you mentioned that, because they're the dark-haired kids too, right? Arya and John.
Yeah.
The 2. Lyanna.
Well, and kids. Isn't Bran in the books? Is he more like auburn hair?
I think he's more like he's like a blend of the 2.
More Tully features. Yeah. Again, Summer's not dead in the books, but just very briefly before we get into the battle and stuff, and talking about direwolves, if you don't mind, if there is anybody there who also watches my nail channel, just to let you know, talking about direwolves, that I did the water decals with the Game of Thrones decals that I got from a friend, and that's what it looks like.
Closer. Let it focus. There you go. Oh, hold it still.
Yeah, anyway, back to Winterfell. So at the strategy meeting, I thought it was quite funny when Tormund was completely clueless when they're talking about strategy, because that's emphasised in the books about the wildlings. There's lots of them, but they're clueless when it comes to like battle strategies.
Yes, that was hilarious.
And that was quite funny.
That was funny.
Jon Snow very briefly mentions Ramsay and his men, and that the tide could be turning, which made me think. I thought that was going to happen with Small John Umber. I was convinced.
Yeah, when we were watching it, it looked for a second there it was going to switch even in.
I have to say, despite the fact that the battle scenes were absolutely unbelievable, just incredible in this episode. I thought they were amazing. However, there's a couple of things, just again the devil in the detail, but I thought that they could have done more with Arya in Bravos, and maybe there is more to that, and there's more theories, and we'll see a bit more in episode 10. But I also thought that they could have definitely played on the whole Grand Northern conspiracy with Small John Umber, but it just looked like he just aligned himself with Ramsay, no question. Not that there wasn't ever going to be a tide turning, and there wasn't going to be we're kind of pretending that we're on Ramsay's side, but we're not really, and as soon as we get into battle the tide will turn. I thought that.
Yeah, but maybe that's the point. Maybe there isn't going to be a Grand Northern conspiracy.
Maybe not, but maybe we're applying additional layers onto this story that's like, well, that'd be good if there was a particular conspiracy. But I thought that they could have included that without it being too confusing.
I think the show's going to a lot of effort to keep things specifically for book readers to do, so they are having fun with it. They're still telling a basic story,
but they're not going into the.
They're not getting into a lot of shit that they arguably could if they felt like it, maybe. But I think they're looking out for George's best interest as well. It's just my theory.
Other thing that there's something that kind of gives me like alarm bells ringing a little bit with Sansa in this episode, because it's this cold dismissal of, yeah, Rickon's not going to be around for much longer. And it's like, whoa, that's, I mean, she seemed to be more of a man about that than John was like, no, we have to like save our brother. And she's like, look,
this is where my argument is that she's making mistakes. She's had different teachers than John's had.
That's just cold. That's a brother.
But
that's
she's
a sibling.
Been these last few years of her life, she's learned through Cersei and she's learned through Littlefinger.
Yeah,
Sansa looks a little power
up.
hungry at the moment, and I think maybe she's wanting Winterfell for herself. So she said it earlier in that scene. She explained it to him. Rickon's more of a threat than you or me. That applies to her too. Rickon's my biggest threat.
Oh, God.
Let's just, he's dead anyways.
Yeah.
She's telling him the truth, more than likely, but maybe it's in her best interest as well. I'm just putting that out there. Because
she's very kind of like, when he says, I'll protect
power
you,
hungry
and she says, no one can protect me. Nobody can protect anybody. Yeah. It was just, there's going to be, they're setting up for some kind of divide between those two, between Sansa and Jon, rather than it being them like united. You passed that way.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I think you explained it as well with just the Direwolves. If Jon and Arya are the only one that have Direwolves left, I think that's got to mean something.
There was a little scene just before.
And you do have the crypt dream or memory or whatever that Arya has, or Jon has. I forget who has it, but of them playing the game in the crypts and Jon coming out covered in flour or whatever, and Arya, poking him and saying it's only Jon.
Yeah,
that's foreshadowing something in the books where Jon's going to be dead, whatever. I don't know exactly what it's going to be. And she's, don't worry, guys, it's just Jon.
It could have been foreshadowing that he was going to have a direwolf called Ghost.
No, because he already had Ghost.
No, this was way earlier.
You got Ghost in the beginning of the fucking books, Claire.
Yeah, but this memory of them being in the crypts and Jon going boo and him covered in flour and him pretending to be a ghost was way before they got the direwolves. That was a memory of when they were very young.
Yes, that comes in the books after he has Ghost, so it's not foreshadowing anything to anybody.
Except that memory happened in the past. I don't know what you
No, I don't know what you think foreshadowing is. It's not telling the reader that fucking, he's going to have Ghost someday because he has Ghost someday. It's not foreshadowing. It's just the fact that
in story foreshadowing, not reader foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Anyway, there are a couple of quick scenes and interactions that happen between certain people before we get into the big battle. So you get Davos talking to Tom, and you get Jon talking to Mel.
Mm-hmm.
And you get the scene with Davos discovering the stag, basically where Shireen was burned.
Sure.
So Davos and Tormund, again, I think I might have mentioned this earlier, but another reference to King Aerys when he says,
yeah, he did,
the demons whispering.
Yeah, no, that was good though. I like that. Yeah, it's perfect.
So the Mad King torched people, and also Davos mentioned torching people and the Red Witch in relation to Stannis.
Mm-hmm.
Stannis was encouraged to burn people, like sacrifice to the Red God. Similarly, Aerys, the Mad King, burned people. Is it feasible to consider that Aerys wasn't being whispered in his ear by Bloodraven, but by some advocate of the Red God at the time.
Well, I'm not totally convinced Bloodraven isn't that person.
Maybe they are. Maybe he is aligned. Maybe he's not the great.
So I think you have
that
two
Mel
different.
sees. Because she does talk about, all I do is try to interpret the flames as best I can. She's kind of saying, I haven't got that much ability. The Red God brought you back. He's the, you know, he is the God, and this is his will. It just those references to the Mad King and the Red God.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Sure. I think when Aerys was released specifically with Rickard and Brandon, that was an actual magical ceremony, magical act at that moment.
Right.
But I don't know if it had anything to do with the Red God. But it was definitely blood magic, fire and blood magic.
Yeah.
Which seemed to go hand in hand.
Well, and the Targaryen words.
Yeah, fire and blood.
Fire and blood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other thing is, did you notice that as Jon turned to leave Mel's tent, he paused and looked into the fire, into the flames, for like a good couple of seconds, just stared into the flames before he walked out. Yeah, as if because she said, all I do is interpret or try to the best that I can. And as he was leaving, he kind of looked as if it was like, I wonder, did he see anything? Is he wondering about what she sees in the flames?
Check in the next watch.
And with Davos and the stag and Shireen's like basically
pyre.
Yeah, death pyre is. Again, at the end of this, I was thinking, why didn't he do anything about that? Did he just accept? Has he just swallowed that and gone, right, okay, whatever, I'm now aligned.
Maybe just took the rage with him into the fucking battle.
Yeah, maybe.
Figured, well, if I die, you know.
Do you think Davos will kill Mel in the next episode, in the finale? She's kind of served a purpose.
I don't know. Has she? That's the hard call to make. Has Mel served her purpose?
I mean, there's this Kinvara now that seems a lot more powerful.
She's still way the fucking Essos, depending on where they show up. But
I think that's a possibility.
That'd be funny. Mel dies, and then this fucking Kinvara or whatever takes over role, and as soon as she shows up at the wall or wherever, they just fucking kill her. Like, no, we've already been through this before. Get out of here.
We don't want another Red Witch. So, yeah, is there anything that you want to say before we get into the battle?
No. I'll say whatever I say when I say it. I'm sorry.
All right.
I've just been listening and adding, talking.
The battle was amazing. I thought 1-1. As soon as I saw 1-1, it was like, yes. Although you were saying something that was a bit implausible with the giant when they were in the.
Oh, just
when they were surrounded.
They didn't utilize them. Yeah, when they were surrounded, one could have bashed his way out of there pretty easily.
Yeah.
And there's even scenes like when you see him from afar and he's just swinging his arms at fucking. Nothing. It's like he's not bending down trying to hit anybody. His arms are way above everybody. It's just ridiculous. I had quite a few problems. I thought the battle was great and I enjoyed it, but I still think that it was kind of shitty. There's a lot of shitty sequences and shitty fucking just moments.
I thought
it was action packed, but it was shitty action packed.
When it switched to Jon in that like first person perspective point, like his job is completely his point of view, and you felt as though you are there on the battlefield, and like that overwhelming when and the image of when he's stood when they're charging, and it's just him stood there, and as he raises his arm to like strike the first blow, that's when the opposite forces and the kind of,
again, you knew that was coming. I was telling you that when we were watching the
image of him stood there just on his own, and that coming towards you.
Sure.
That like
again, you can nitpick that, and I really don't want to nitpick it, but you got to be able to hear those horses coming up behind you and know that they're coming.
When you're in those kind of situations, not that I've ever been in that kind of situation, but I've been in fight or flight situations.
Way to clarify, Claire.
Right, I've been in fight or flight situations where you don't necessarily hear a noise that's going on around you, and time sort of goes in different, it can speed up and slow down.
I find that you become way more aware of everything in those situations.
But you become hyper aware of what you're focusing on, not necessarily periphery stuff. Your body,
don't you point your finger at me.
Your body under those circumstances is flushed with a hormone called a stress hormone called cortisone when you're on that fight or flight response, and it affects everything. It affects your heart rate, your breathing, your reactions to everything. So you're not necessarily going to hear even a really loud stampede behind you, because sometimes all you can hear is your own breath, or you're hyper focused on.
Again, I know
strange to
there's
explain
different versions of what you're speaking of, but I know what you're saying.
I really felt as though I was in some of those moments in the battle scenes, and I thought they were shot. I mean, I know they spent hours and hours and hours. You said that somebody told you they'd spent
86 hours of footage.
Yeah, a lot of footage in those battle scenes, and just with the choreography where he's kind of spinning around and chopping people down, and then that bit where he's just, and again, it's the reality of those kind of situations where you get that bank of dead and dying bodies, and that guy crawling across with no legs, and he starts to suffocate.
I don't think I've seen it.
Oh, it was just grim. It was grim, but in a gritty, realistic kind of way. It definitely didn't sort of glorify.
The backgrounds were very, very good. It was the sequences of the action where John was here and then there, and this is happening and that's happening. It was just the way they danced him through it, and then he ducks and a bunch of arrows come and land, and then he swings his sword and a guy flies backwards, which you can't. That's not going. You're not going to beat inertia. Inertia is going to bring the guy forward that way. So it was. I don't know. I didn't. It just. There was some camp within some great epicness, and I thought the backgrounds were.
But we've
were
waited for years and years and years to have a real get right in there battle scene. That's. And I know we had a lot. That's why I enjoyed Hard Home, because the action sequences and the action generally, and just the atmosphere, and it was just so spooky. Everything about it was. I love that episode, even from a book sort of purist.
You're a little bit deeper into a fight than you have been any time before. Sure, I like that.
When he's suffocating and when he's kind of
that was great.
You can almost good. It's like you can almost hear the pulse in your ear of like that sort of not being able to catch your breath,
so
just wanting.
I think I figured out what they were going for when they were doing it though, is because that's what we were doing when that's happening. Is you're fucking you're holding your breath too, like what the fuck's happening? And he's crawling and he breaks out and you kind of like release at the same time. I was saying that, like, where's the release? It's coming, it's coming. Where's Littlefinger? Where's Littlefinger? Finally he shows up. But I thought they nailed that part. That was probably my highlight of the show, was that crush. And it was just
what I never really thought of or expected, which was quite a nice touch, was the pretty obvious pair up and matching between Tormund and Small John.
Yeah.
And he'd said previously that his family has been fighting wildlings forever. Yeah. So he went out fighting a wildling, and I was on the edge of my seat during all of those scenes, thinking that Tormund wasn't going to make it. And it's like, is he going to? And they kept dragging him back, and it's like, oh, thank God, thank God, he's going to make it. And it was the three of them at the end. It was 1-1, John, and Tormund that started charging towards Winterfell, but you could see Sansa there with Littlefinger with a smile on his face. You know, the Knights of the Vale storming in, and you can see that aerial shot of them breaking up the Bolton.
Yeah, and then that sort of running it down, like just dominoes backwards the other way. Yeah, the pincer.
Yeah, I really loved those battle scenes. I thought they were great, and I don't know why Sansa didn't mention anything at all to Jon, unless, like I said, she just was taking a gamble and wasn't sure whether that was going to happen. Maybe she didn't want to get his hopes up.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense to me. Because he asked her right then, how can we wait? And she had her argument then saying, don't worry about Bran, or Rickon again, sorry. Don't worry about Rickon, he's dead already anyway. So she wants to prove that and make him wait. Tell him, well, I got this dude who's got an army, he might have killed Dad, but
we can use him for now.
Yeah. They could have done whatever. So it's weird that she didn't. And the way she wrote in when Jon's still being crushed and sort of just all high and proud, and she looks a little power hungry.
So is there anything else you want to say about the battle before we get into Winterfell specifically?
No, again, that fucking crush, that was just perfect. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Just again, that
you're holding your breath as he's getting crushed.
And it's that march as well, that like 1, 2, 3, whoop, and then they put the shields down.
That was a little bit stupid too.
Well, yeah, but they're using the long spears, so it's a you have a wound and you're going to use the wound and constricting. Yeah, he should have smashed through those.
The other thing I don't understand is why Woodwin went to Winterfell with Jon.
Well, he said Snow, didn't he? He was loyal to the end.
Yeah.
I was almost.
He's the last one, yeah.
Yeah, don't, because it's just that's really sad. It's almost had more of an impact actually than the Direwolves being killed this season. I just thought that was, and when Jon looks to him and he just gets, it's just like it's over. That's it, last of the giants, and it's just that very microsecond, brief, kind of poetic moment of like,
then Ramsay.
Yeah, the little shit.
Ramsay fucking killed Woman.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
But just before we move off from 1-1, again, it's just dotting the I's and crossing the T's, crossing the T's with theories and things like that. Is Sansa both in the books and in the TV show with the ice castle at the Eyrie, and Sweet Robin's like toy that's the giant so yeah, that imagery of the giant going into Winterfell. So we had it this episode with 1-1.
I don't remember the guy.
smashing his way into Winterfell. So that was foreshadowed. That was foreshadowed both in the books and in the TV show in previous seasons. But so Ramsay kills 1-1. Then you have this scene with Jon advancing on Ramsay, can't sort of draw his arrows quick enough, and he's just advancing and he smacks him with the shield. I mean, there's a bit there where Sansa's kind of looking, and it's like there's a number of things there. Is he kind of like, right, you know, not in front of a lady, not in front of my sister. I need to kind of stop. This is too brutal.
Well, I think she
or was it
led on to Jon.
I need to finish the job,
right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And
yeah.
so it's, you know, Jon saying, yeah, he's yours. Plus, the one who swings gives him the sentence to swing the sword. So
yeah,
better have it. She's the one that's going to sentence him. And it's also, I guess, in Jon's head at the moment, she's the rightful heir to Winterfell. It's her prisoner.
The freaky smile that Ramsay has on his face as he's being bit the shit out of.
Awesome. So good that they managed to do that, and they hit it perfectly. It was great.
He really had a freaky, dangerous thing about torture.
Yeah.
Including it happening to him. Oh my God, just horrible baddie, but played really well by the actor. So then you see the.
Yeah, I wonder. We gotta try to get that reaction video up because you had a reaction to that. Smile.
Oh, yeah.
I forget what you said, but it was funny.
He's a freak.
Yeah.
Then we see the Direwolf sigil, so you see the banners, they get rid of the Bolton banners, and the Direwolf sigil gets closed back up again, and there's a real fist punching moment.
Note at the bottom here, and I wrote it actually before we saw it the second time. Yeah. I was just like, how rewarding was it seeing the Stark banners fall down, not fall.
And then you get that very last scene with Sansa and Ramsay. What did you make of that?
I thought it was cool. The dogs all came out on cue, which is rather interesting. I mean, just want to go into any sort of warging notion there. I don't know. Did she stick them on herself? Or...
That's a good point. I haven't thought of that.
Seeing that they all came out at the exact same time.
I mean, he did say to her, "I'm part of you." And I know what he meant. When he said,
"I did have to think about
I'm going to haunt you."
Nature, like, no, I know what you're saying.
It does suggest
what in my head too.
Yeah.
I'm part of you.
When she talks about, you're just going to be wiped out of existence.
Your words will be forgotten. This will be forgotten. Everything about you will be forgotten.
There'll be no memory of you whatsoever. That's kind of like Tywin and the Reigns of Castamere.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So again, she's, is Sansa being a bit sort of tyrannical there? I mean, she's got every right just to kind of, wipe.
No, I don't think that's existence. I mean, I think she might become a little bit power mad, but I don't think that's tyrannical. She's got every right in the world to fucking say that to him. So,
that was just brutal at the end, where he gets his face jumped off by the dog.
But she didn't look away. Ramsay looked away when it was Fat Walda.
Yes.
But
yeah, she didn't.
Thanks for drawing that one out.
She in fact she kind of steps back, but then it's like she forces herself to watch it, which is, and then she has this kind of, satisfactory smile as she walks off, and it's like that's it. That's the end of the episode. That's
interesting though, the smile in general. Do you allow yourself to smile there? Like, could you see Jon smiling after? Would Jon do something like that?
She just concerns me. She seems to have her own agenda that doesn't include Jon knowing everything, which is.
No, I don't mean it in terms of like that. I just mean when you kill an enemy, do you have this sort of this smile of achievement afterwards, or like I just can't picture Jon having killed somebody, walking out and then having a smile.
Yeah, Yeah.
Seemed odd.
I mean, she's been through enough to, like, I would understand. But yeah, I suppose you're right. I think there are just questions there, and I'm a little bit worried. So I don't know. I don't know what we're going to see next episode. There's something there between Sansa and Jon where they're talking about trust. We've got to trust each other.
Yeah, I think still have the fucking White Walkers. That's what's great.
Well, I can't wait for the.
You got nothing in the trailer about White Walkers or anything?
I think you see Bran for like a second.
Okay.
And it's and the episode is called The Winds of Winter.
Yeah, so they'll
So,
have to show something like that.
So yeah, I can't wait.
Even if it's just at the very end again, like they did that one season where it's just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we're still here.
Yeah. I'm hoping that we see lots of locations and that there's some finality to some of the story arcs, but I just hope they don't leave everything on cliffhangers.
Yeah.
Because that would be just too much.
I think you'll get King's Landing exploding.
Yeah.
Somehow, something in King's Landing is going up.
Cersei, burn them all. I'm sure of it. Or at least a variation of something like that, where she just goes.
It's an extended episode, so they can do a trial in like the first 10, 15, have maybe a little middling thing, and then have her go nuts near the end, and then dot everybody else around that.
Yeah. Can't wait. Okay. Anything else that you want to say about this episode? I thought it was brilliant.
I like the Davos thinks and walks before going to battle.
Davos what?
Thinks and walks.
Yes, that's a bit like you before small council.
Yes. Or any time. As soon as I start thinking about Game of Thrones, I'm just pacing back and forth. Back and forth, back and forth.
Okay, that's it for this week.
No, it's not. We're still going.
Are we?
I don't know.
I think we've done everything, haven't we?
You have.
Well, I did ask you if there was anything else.
I know, and I haven't given you an answer yet.
Right.
Sorry, I'm just actually trying to drag it on because I don't really know. Yeah, no, I think we're done. Sure.
Okay.
Say goodnight.
Good night.
It's over.
Okay.
Why are you still here?
Bye.